Okay, we've got 2, 2, and fixed the sound issue, so I'm re-recording this. I want you to be able to solve two-step equations today. So yesterday we did one-step equations, so that would be, let's see, x plus 17 equals 23. So the opposite of plus 17 would be minus 17. And 23 take away 17 is 6. This is what we did yesterday. So 4x, divide both sides. 4x means 4 times x. The opposite would be division. Remember, we show division with fraction bars, division bars. And x equals negative 25. Now, if you can do these two problems, then you can do today's work, because today is going to have problems that are 2 steps, and pretty much these are the 2 steps. It's just going to be all in one problem. So there's some vocabulary I want you to know. All right, so constant, variable, and coefficient. Those are our 3 vocabulary words. I'm going to use the word answer, but it's not technically a vocabulary word. All right, so what does a basic 2-step look like? Well, you have a number that's with a variable, with a letter, and it might add or it might subtract with another number, and then it'll be equal to something. Okay, so let's infuse our vocabulary here. Okay, 64 is the answer because it's the number that's after the equal. Variable, I already used that word, that's the letter. Okay, and the word coefficient has the prefix co in front of it. Co means with. So the coefficient is the number that is with the variable. I don't know why it has the word efficient in it. I'm not really sure. It's kind of a bit of math trivia that I don't know. The constant has a lot of mathematical meanings, but in this context, a constant is a number that's not multiplying a variable, like 64 or 16. Technically 64 is a constant, but 64 we've already labeled that as the answer. Okay, so I can rearrange this. I can put these things in a lot of different orders and still have a 2-step equation. For example, I could put the equals 64 out in front. Move these things over. I could do that. These two things could switch places. I could put the 16 over here and the 4x over here, and somehow my plus sign disappeared. I don't know where my plus sign. Well, we'll bring down the minus sign. Okay, we could have 16 take away 4x. All right, a lot of ways we could rearrange this. I could put the equals 64 back at the end again. Okay, and we would still have an answer. We would still have a variable. We would still have a coefficient, and we would still have a constant. Okay. On this page, we just practice these vocabulary words some more. Okay, so we've got, I usually label the things that I know for certain first. So like x is a letter, that's a variable. Okay, variables, the number with the variable, remember with was co, so coefficient. All right, the 54, that's the answer to the equation, and 12 is the constant. All right, next one. Here we go again. Let's go in order. 17, let's see, it's not next to the equal. It doesn't have a variable. That's a constant. 3, okay, 3 does have the variable next to it. That's the coefficient. X, that letter, that's the variable. And negative 20 is our answer. Okay, last one. 18, that's our answer because it's right next to the equal sign and nothing else is with it. -2 is next to the variable, that's the coefficient. X is a variable. And 30 is a constant. Okay, so make sure that you really understand the vocabulary no matter what order things go in. Okay? Okay, so I said these equations have 2 steps. First, you're going to cancel the number being added or subtracted. And here's where we're looking for our constant. Okay, that's the first thing you're going to go for. Your constant is the number being added or subtracted in the question. Remember I said the equal sign is like the middle of the problem. Even though there's more stuff on the left than there is on the right, the equal is like the middle. So it says plus 15. The opposite would be minus 15. So that's how we cancel something off. Remember, my goal is to find x. So that would be to cancel that off. 75 minus 15 is 60. And 4x, don't get lazy on me, guys. Bring that all the way down. 4x. Rewrite it. Okay, 4 next to x means multiply. The opposite of multiply is to divide. So I'm going to divide on both sides. Now some students don't like to divide on both sides because really the 60 divided by 4 equaling the 15, that's where you get the answer. The divide by 4 over here doesn't feel like it does anything. Well, couple things. First of all, it isolates the x, which is what we want on that side of the equation. Secondly, it preserves equality. The equal sign is, you have to preserve equality. If you do something on one side of the equal, you have to do it on the other so that it stays even. Okay, it's kind of like the English grammar thing. I know what you mean if you don't write the stuff on, if you don't write the divide by 4 on both sides and you leave this side off. I understand that you get the answer of 15 either way. But it's kind of like going to English class and writing a paragraph. And maybe you have good ideas, but if you talk, if your writing sounds like a toddler because you're not writing it with proper grammar and proper spelling, then you can't really expect full credit on the assignment just because your ideas are correct. Okay? Let's do a couple more of these problems. 3x plus 10 equals 40. So here's my dividing line. Okay, subtract 10. Why did I subtract 10 first? Because that's the first step. I always go for the number being added or subtracted or for the constant. Okay, so that cancels and the 3x comes down. 40 minus 10 is 30. Then divide both sides by 3. Why did I divide? Because 3 next to the x means multiply. So x equals 10. Okay, now on your homework it says to check. Okay, checking is just taking the answer you got, 10, and substituting it back into the equation. So the original equation said 3x plus 10 equals 40. Well, checking just means that I take the x out and I sub in times 10. Now you can use parentheses or you can use a dot. You cannot use an x. Okay, x's are variables now. So 3 times 10 is 30 plus 10 equals 40, and I wanted it to equal 40. The problem told me it was supposed to equal 40. So that's how you check. You plug in the number, make sure that it equals what it's supposed to. Okay? Alright, here's my equal sign. This problem is written in a different order, but don't let that throw you. Again, go for the number first that's being added or subtracted with no variable. So minus 20 plus 20. Okay, 5x, don't be lazy, write it down, carry it down. 15 plus 20 is 35. Divide both sides, oh, we're dividing by 5 because that's where the x is. and x equals 7. Okay? Now, next week we're going to be doing multi-step equations, and multi-step equations start very long and you do a bunch of steps to them, but they all simplify down to usually a two-step equation, but sometimes a one-step equation. So that's why we've been doing one-step and two-step equations, because our 8th grade level equations that we're going to solve, they're going to boil down to these two steps. So we're reviewing that. All right, these two problems, and actually I'm going to move this one over. Move this one over here. Okay. All right, some of you fraction phobes see this and it looks like a fraction to you, but it's really not. It's a division. And it's not where we start the problem anyway. We start the problem the same way we've been doing, which is go to the number being added or subtracted first. Go to your constant and do the opposite. Subtract 14 both sides. Okay? 20 take away 14 is 6. What am I bringing down? I'm bringing this whole thing down. X divided by negative 2. Did you hear me just say divided by, not fraction? Okay. So, dividing, the opposite would be multiply. So I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 2. That cancels this side and gets x by itself to carry down. And 6 times negative 2 would be negative 12. So that was not scary at all. It involves really no fraction. It just looks like a fraction. All right, next one. Here's my equal sign. There's my x. 17 is the number that's the constant. It's positive, so I will subtract 17. That cancels out, and I bring down x over 4. Negative 3 minus 17 is negative 20. Now, if in your mind you thought it was anything besides negative 20, then I would encourage you to use your calculator from now on. Okay, now lots of you prefer to use the dots, but I'm going to continue to show parentheses so that you see both. Okay, since this was a divide problem to start with, you cancel it with multiplication. Negative 20 times 4 is negative 80. What I get a lot of in these questions is students write the multiply, but they are so used to dividing that they divide by accident. So make sure that when you're supposed to be multiplying, you actually multiply. Okay guys, so here's the answers to the first 10 homework questions. And I want to stress again that while you're doing these 10 homework questions, if you're the first 10, okay, there's more in the back. If you're doing these first 10 homework questions and you find you're getting a lot of these right, awesome. So happy for you. If you find you're getting some of these wrong, that's your signal, gee, I better go and see Miss Andrews or for tutoring, or maybe I need to rewatch parts of the YouTube video again. So keep that in mind, and I wish you a great weekend. See you next time.